capacities, but it also should develop social, ethical, and emotional capacities and dispositions. The rich heritage of ancient and eternal Indian knowledge and thoughts has been a guiding light for this policy. So the pursuit of knowledge, wisdom, and truth was always considered in Indian thought and philosophy as the highest human goals. In ancient India, the aim of education was not just the acquisition of knowledge, but as preparation for life in this world or life beyond schooling, but the complete realization and liberation of the self. So there were world-class institutions in our ancient India like Takshila, Nalanda, so which has set the highest standards of multidisciplinary teaching and research. And we know from our rich history that these world-class institution hosted scholars and students from across the world, from different backgrounds and from different countries. And many great educationists or great scholars have been produced by our Indian education systems. For example, Aryabhatta, Brahmagupta, Chanakya, among numerous others, which may be difficult to write all names here. And these scholars have made seminal contribution to world knowledge in diverse fields. And these fields not only were related to only one or two branches, but in different branches. So India has shown its capability in from very old time in different fields of mathematics, astronomy, metallurgy, medical science and surgery, civil engineering, architecture, shipbuilding and navigation, yoga, fine arts, chess, and many more. So all this Indian culture and philosophy had a strong influence on the world. So these rich legacies to world heritage must not only be nurtured and preserved for posterity, but also researched, enhanced, and put to new uses through our education system. So somehow we have not preserved to the level which it should be, as when we compare with our past institutions. And all this involves teachers. So teachers are considered at the center of the fundamental reforms in the education system as per this policy. So this policy advocates that we must help to re-establish teachers at all levels as the most respected and essential members of our society, because they truly shape our next generations of citizens. So to empower teachers, whatever should be done, it advocates that should be done, and the teachers should be helped to do their jobs as effectively as possible. And also this policy advocates that there should be recruitment of the very best and brightest to enter the teaching profession at all levels. And it should be ensured that the livelihood, respect, and dignity and autonomy is provided to the teachers, while also instilling in the system basic methods of quality control and accountability. So this new education policy envisions that it should be provided to all students irrespective of their place of residence. So quality education system should be provided to all students, and the particular focus should be on historically marginalized or disadvantaged or underrepresented groups, because the education is great lever. So and it is the best tool for achieving economic and social mobility, inclusion and equality. And there should be initiatives in place to ensure that all students from different groups, despite their inherent obstacles, are provided various targeted opportunity to enter and excel in the education system. So education should not be right or within the reach of few. It should be reachable, or it should be possible for all to have the excellent quality education. And all these factors, while the education policy is prepared, so it was proposed that not only the local but also the global needs of the country should be taken into account while incorporating these factors with the respect for and deference to its rich diversity and culture. Instilling knowledge of India and its varied social, culture, and technological needs, its inimitable artistic language and knowledge traditions, its strong ethics in India's young people is considered critical for purposes of national pride, self-confidence, self-knowledge, cooperation, and integration. So with this introduction, so now I'm going to describe certain principles of this policy. So according to this policy, the purpose of the education system is to develop good human beings capable of rational thought and action, and they should possess compassion and empathy, courage and resilience, scientific temper and creative imagination, and at the same time, sound ethical moorings and values. This policy aims at producing engaged, productive, and contributing citizens for building an equitable, inclusive, and plural society as envisaged by our Constitution. So good education institutions are must for achieving these objectives. So it has also defined what a good education institution should look like. So a good education institution is one in which every student feels welcomed and cared for, where a safe and stimulating learning environment exists, where a wide range of learning experiences are offered, and where good physical infrastructure and appropriate resources conducive to learning are available to all students, irrespective of the background of the student. So to achieve these qualities, every education institution should take steps, and it should be the ultimate goal of every education institution. And at the same time, there should be integration and coordination across institution and across all stages of education. Other important principles on which this policy is based. So it includes recognizing, identifying, and fostering the unique capabilities of each student, while sensitizing teachers as well as parents to promote each student's holistic development in both academic and non-academic spheres. Flexibility in terms of the ability to choose their learners. So this flexibility should be available with the learners, that they should be able to choose their trajectories and programs, and why they should be having freedom to choose their own paths in life according to their talents and interests. So there should not be any hard separations like we are having today, arts and sciences, or between curricular and extracurricular activities, or between vocational and academic streams. So all these separations should be merged, and the learners should be free to choose their own subjects, and accordingly they should explore different areas of learning as per their interest and talents. Multidisciplinarity and holistic education across the sciences, social sciences, arts, humanities, and sports for a multidisciplinary world in order to ensure the unity and integrity of all knowledge. So that is another principle of this policy. And it proposes that there should be emphasis on conceptual understanding rather than rote learning or learning for exams. And there should be encouragement for the creativity and critical thinking, so that there is logical decision making and innovation qualities are developed among the learners. At the same time, there should be qualities like ethics and human and constitutional values in the learners. So these values may be represented by, say, empathy, respect for others, cleanliness, courtesy, democratic spirit, spirit of service, respect for public property, scientific temper, and such many more features can be written. In policy, this policy also has one principle that in teaching and learning, multilingualism and the power of language should be promoted rather than teaching in one particular language. And the various life skills such as communication, cooperation, teamwork, and resilience should be provided to the students during the education process. There should be focus on regular formative assessments for learning rather than summative assessment that encourage today's coaching culture. So, formative assessment is supported, advocated in a strong way in this policy. And at the same time, the use of technology in an extensive way is promoted, and it will help in removing language barriers, it will increase access for young students, and it will help in educational planning and management. So respect for diversity and respect for the local context should be visible in all curriculum, pedagogy, and policy, while keeping in mind that education is a concurrent subject. There should be full equity and inclusion as the cornerstone of all educational decisions to ensure that all students are able to thrive in education system, irrespective of the location of the particular institution or the background of the learners. And there should be synergy in curriculum across all levels of education, from early childhood care and education to school education to higher education. So basically, this policy has divided education system into early childhood care, then school education, then higher education. So in this particular session, I will be highlighting certain features which are related to higher education. So I will not be going into details of higher early childhood care or school education. Directly we will discuss higher education features, as most of the participants are from higher education only. So this policy also has one of the principles that teachers and faculty is the heart of the learning process. So their recruitment, their continuous professional development, positive working environment, and service conditions. So all these should be carefully planned, and teachers should not be worried about such other factors while when they are teaching in a particular educational institution. So to achieve the desired goals, so there should be some regulatory framework. So it proposes that there should be light but tight regulatory framework, and that framework should ensure integrity, transparency, and resource efficiency of the educational systems through audit and public disclosures, while encouraging innovation and out-of-the-box ideas through autonomy, good governance, and empowerment. Because outstanding research is a core requisite for outstanding education and development. So there should be continuous review of progress based on sustained research and regular assessment by educational expert. A rootedness and pride in India and its rich, diverse, ancient and modern culture and knowledge system and tradition. They should be the base for the development when any education institute devises its development plan. So all these should be at the background. So this policy states that education is a public service. So access to quality education must be considered as a basic right of every child, and there should be substantial investment in a strong, vibrant public education system, as well as the encouragement and facilitation of true philanthropic, private, and community participation. So the vision of this policy includes that an education system rooted in Indian ethos that contributes directly to transforming India, that's Bharat, sustainably into an equitable and vibrant knowledge society by providing high quality education to all and thereby making India a global knowledge superpower. This policy also envisions that the curriculum and pedagogy of our institutions must develop among the students a deep sense of respect towards the fundamental duties and constitutional values, bonding with one's country, and a conscious awareness of one's roles and responsibilities in a changing world. The vision of this policy is to instill among the learners a deep-rooted pride in being Indian, not only in thought, but also in spirit, intellect, and deeds, as well as to develop knowledge, skills, values and dispositions that support responsible commitment to human rights, sustainable development and living, and global well-being, thereby reflecting a truly global citizens. So to achieve all these introduced features, there should be qualities universities and is there any point of discussion? Is there any point of discussion, please, from anyone? So we must have quality universities and colleges. So the higher education plays an extremely important role in promoting human as well as societal well-being and in developing India as envisioned in its constitution, a democratic, just, socially conscious, cultured and humane nation upholding liberty, equality, fraternity and justice for all. So higher education significantly contributes towards the sustainable livelihoods and economic development of the nation. As India is moving towards becoming a knowledge economy and society, and there should be more and more young people which will aspire for higher education, as we are going to have the highest young population in the world. So the young people who will aspire the higher education, so that number will be very high again. So there should be aim to develop a quality higher education and which should have good, thoughtful, well-rounded and creative individual. And so this quality higher education must enable an individual to study one or more specialized areas of interest at a deep level and also develop character, ethical and constitutional values, intellectual curiosity, scientific temper, creativity, spirit of service, and 21st century capabilities across a range of disciplines, including sciences, social sciences, arts, humanities, languages, as well as professional, technical, and vocational subjects. So the individual will be master or the specialized knowledge gainer in some fields into a deep level, but it should have the knowledge of other interdisciplinary fields also, which should change across disciplines. So a quality higher education system must enable personal accomplishment and enlightenment, constructive public engagement and productive contribution to society. And at the same time, it should prepare students for more meaningful and satisfying lives and work roles and enable economic independence. So to meet the goal of developing holistic individuals, so the set of skills and values should be identified, and those identified skills and values should be incorporated into the education system at different stages of learning, ranging from preschool to higher education. And especially this higher education must enable the development of an enlightened, socially conscious, knowledgeable and skilled nation that can find and implement robust solution to its own problems rather than asking for solutions to someone others. So the creation of greater opportunities for individual employment, so that should not be the only purpose of quality higher education. It should represent the key to more vibrant, socially engaged, cooperative communities and a happier, cohesive, cultured, productive, innovative, progressive and prosperous nation. So the only employment seeking should not be the goal of the higher education system. There are many problems which are currently faced by the higher education system in India, and some of the problems which have been highlighted in the NEP itself. So those have been reproduced here on the screen, and these problems are really very serious that should be tackled at the earlier. So the first problem includes a severely fragmented higher education ecosystem. So we are not having a consolidated or integrated higher education system. So here in this present education system, there is less emphasis on the development of cognitive skills and learning outcomes. So the main motive of the today's education system is to get the employment, and that also not many of the learners are employment seekers, not the employment generators or the entrepreneurs. There is a rigid separation of disciplines with early specialization in streaming of students into narrow areas of study. Like we even at the after 10th, there are separation in medical, non-medical, commerce, or arts type of disciplines. That should not be there. And there is limited access, particularly in socio-economically disadvantaged areas with few higher education institutions that teach in local languages. So quality higher education institutions are very limited in numbers, and in most of the areas, people are not having access to such quality institutions in their local languages. Limited teacher and institutional autonomy is another major problem being faced by the higher education system in India. Inadequate mechanisms for merit-based career management and progression of faculty and institutional leaders. So this is also a major problem, because in some of the institutions, some of these career management or progression of faculty processes exist, but in most of the institutions, especially which are owned by non-government organizations, so such processes are not so visible. And there is lesser emphasis on research at most universities and colleges. Lack of competitive peer-reviewed research funding across disciplines. So this is another area where the higher education system of India is facing the problem. And there is suboptimal governance and leadership of HEIs. So the leaders or the administrators are not optimally governing the institutions. The regulatory system is ineffective. So there is a large affiliating universities, so which further results in low standards of undergraduate education. So to make the higher education system of India free of those limitations which we have just discussed and other such limitations. So this policy envisions a complete overhaul and re-energizing of the higher education system, and achieving a high quality higher education system which is based on equity and inclusion. So the key changes to the current education system which this in policy envisions include moving towards a higher education system consisting of large multidisciplinary universities and colleges. And that multidisciplinary colleges or universities are also planned or envisioned at least one in or near every district. And with more higher education institutions in India that offer medium of instruction or programs in local or Indian languages. And it advocates about moving towards a more multidisciplinary undergraduate education and moving towards faculty and institutional autonomy. So getting rid of the affiliating system will result in this institutional autonomy, and this will further help the improvement in higher education system. So if the teacher is having flexibility, faculty is having flexibility, autonomy, so they will revamp curriculum, pedagogy, assessment, and student support for enhanced student experiences. Reaffirming the integrity of faculty and institutional leadership positions through merit appointments and career progression based on teaching, research, and service. So that is another change which has been proposed by this policy. This policy also proposes to establish a National Research Foundation, NRF, to fund outstanding peer-reviewed research to actively seed research in universities and colleges. Governance of HEIs should be by high qualified independent boards, so which are proposed as board of governors, and the members should have academic and administrative autonomy. And the regulatory system should be light, but at the same time tight, and there should not be multiple regulators, there should be single regulator for higher education. And there should be increased access, security, and inclusion through a range of measures, which may include greater opportunities for outstanding public education, scholarships by private or philanthropic universities for disadvantaged and underprivileged students, online education, open distance learning, and on infrastructure and learning materials accessible and available to learners with disabilities. Because in the pandemic, only we have seen that all of a sudden our education became online, but the learners which were having difficulties in assessing the learners this online system, so which are not able to basically assess the learners online system, so they are at great disadvantage. So all these things should be kept in mind in the upcoming quality universities and colleges. So to achieve this, the first thing is that there should be complete institutional restructuring and consolidation. So this consolidation is important to end the fragmentation of higher education. So this policy proposes that the higher education institutions must be converted into multidisciplinary universities, and there should be clusters or the knowledge hubs, and each hub or the multidisciplinary university should aim at having 3,000 or more number of students, because this would help in building vibrant communities of scholars and peers, and it will break down harmful silos which are existing today, and it will enable students to become well-rounded across disciplines, including artistic, creative, and analytical subjects, as well as sports. We will also develop active research communities across disciplines, including cross-disciplinary research, and it will increase resource efficiency, both material and human, across higher education. So this consolidation of the institutions is important from different angles. And it is not the new idea, because in ancient Indian universities like Takshila, Nalanda, so such multidisciplinary environments existed in a vibrant mode. And these ancient Indian universities have demonstrated great success in such large multidisciplinary research and research and teaching environments. So India urgently needs to bring back this great Indian tradition to create well-rounded and innovative individuals, which is already transforming other countries educationally and economically. So this vision of higher education will require a new conceptual perception, understanding for what constitutes a higher education institution, that is a university or a college. So a university or a college will mean a multidisciplinary institution of higher learning that will offer undergraduate as well as graduate programs with high quality of teaching, research, and community engagement. So universities will be of different types. So there will be universities which will be called as research intensive universities. So these will put more focus on teaching and research. And then there will be teaching intensive universities that will place greater focus on teaching, but also still conduct significant research. Then there will be autonomous degree granting colleges. So they will refer to the large multidisciplinary institutions of higher learning that grants undergraduate degrees and is primarily focused on undergraduate teaching rather than on the research, but they will not be restricted from doing the research. So they will be kind of a entities smaller than a typical university. So there will be a concept of graded accreditation. So the stage-wise mechanism for granting graded autonomy to colleges through a transparent system of graded accreditation will be established. Over the time, the colleges will be encouraged as well as mentored, supported, and incentivized to attain the minimum benchmark required at each level of graded accreditation. And over a period of time, it is envisaged that every college would develop into either an autonomous degree granting college or a constituent college of a university. So constituent college of university means a part of the university. So these accreditations will level of our institutions either into autonomous degree granting colleges and other research intensive universities or teaching intensive universities. And these autonomous degree granting colleges will have the scope to evolve into research intensive or teaching intensive universities as per their focus as per their vision mission. So there will be three broad types of institutions, but these three broad types of institutions are not exclusionary categorizations. So it is basically along a continuum. So there will be again not hard separation between different types of institutions. So institutions will have autonomy and freedom to move gradually from one category to another. It's not that if it's not at a particular time, it's a one kind of institution, it cannot go to others, so that will not be there. So the policy proposes that there should be mechanism to move gradually from one category to another. So based on the plans, action and effectiveness of the institution management. And the basic difference or the marker for these categories will be the focus of their goals and work. So whether the institution is focusing on undergraduate or teaching only, or it's focusing on research accordingly. So there will be different types of institutions. So there will be different relevant norms across the range of HEI, so which will be developed by the accreditation agencies. And high quality education will be the expectation from all types of institutions, whether it's first category, second or third. And the teaching learning across all HIs will be the same and quality will be the same irrespective of the type of the institution. In addition to teaching and learning, so HEIs will have other crucial responsibilities which they will discharge through appropriate resourcing, incentive and structure. So these other responsibilities include supporting other HEIs. So if one institute is has attained a level which is very much required for high quality education, so then it will help other HEIs in its neighborhood to develop or to basically enhance its level of teaching and learning. And it will also, HEIs will also support to school education. So by 2040, all higher education institutions shall aim to become multidisciplinary institutions and shall aim to have the large student enrollments, preferably in the thousands, for optimal use of infrastructure and resources and for creation of vibrant multidisciplinary communities. So to reach there, so first institutions will plan to become multidisciplinary by 2030, and then they will gradually increase their student strength to the desired levels. And establishment and development of more HEIs in the underserved regions for providing full access, equity and inclusion in higher education is another goal, and it is expected that by 2030 there will be at least one large multidisciplinary HEI in or near every district. Also in institutional restructuring and consolidation, steps will be taken towards developing high quality higher education institutions, both public and private, that have medium of instruction in local or Indian languages or bilingually. Ultimate aim is to increase the gross enrollment ratio, which is in 2018 was 26.3% to 50% by 2035. So all these to achieve this increased aim of gross enrollment ratio, new institutions will be developed. At the same time, the existing institutions will be consolidated and the capacities will be enhanced of the existing HEIs by improving their functioning, by improving their quality of education. So what sort of funding will be provided? So that will be decided by a fair and transparent system for public HEIs. So this system will give an equitable opportunity for all public institutions to grow and develop, and it will be based on transparent and pre-announced criteria, and that criteria will be basically dependent upon the accreditation norms, graded accreditation norms. Another important aspect is the open distance learning and online learning, and institutions will be allowed to run these types of programs also, provided they have accreditation, they have the capability to run these programs, and because these will provide opportunities for lifelong learners. The standards and quality of the ODL programs or the diplomas or degree awarded through ODL program, they will be comparable with the highest quality programs run by the HCI on their campuses. So there will not be any quality dilution in ODL or online modes. So also the top institutions which are accredited for ODL, so they will be encouraged and supported to develop high quality online courses. These courses will be integrated into curriculum by different HEIs, and or these will be part of blended mode of education, which will be uh, exposed to the learners. So over the time, single stream HEIs will be phased out, and there will be only multi-disciplinary institutions, which will be having either clusters of multidisciplinary institutions or large standalone multidisciplinary institutions. And all these multidisciplinary institutions will encourage high quality multidisciplinary and cross-disciplinary teaching and research across different fields. So the accreditations will help towards the autonomy of the higher education institutions, autonomy in terms of academic as well as administrative fields, so that these institutions are enabled with the multidisciplinary culture. And at the same time, autonomy of public institutions will be backed by adequate public financial support and stability. And private institutions with the public spirited commitment to high quality, equitable education will also be encouraged. This new regulatory system, which is envisioned by this policy, that will foster this overall culture of empowerment and autonomy to innovate, including by gradually phasing out the system of affiliated colleges over a period of 15 years through a system of graded autonomy, and to be carried out in a challenge mode. So after 15 years, it is expected that there will be no affiliated college. So either there will be autonomous degree awarding colleges, or the colleges will be part of universities. So the existing affiliated university will be responsible for mentoring its affiliated colleges so that they can develop capabilities and achieve minimum benchmarks in academic and curricular matters, teaching assessment, governance reforms and financial openness and administrative efficiency to come out of the university and to exist as autonomous degree awarding colleges. So the overall higher education sector will aim to be an integrated higher education system, including professional and vocational education. And this policy and its approach will be equally applicable to all HEIs across all current streams, which would eventually merge into one coherent ecosystem of higher education. So there will be not different nomenclatures of HEIs like present we are having university, deemed to be university, affiliating university, affiliating technical university. So there are different names. So there, in the upcoming time, there will be only single nomenclature, that will be university, and that nomenclature will be allotted to the institution on fulfilling the criteria as per norms. So university, we all know that worldwide it means a multidisciplinary institution of higher learning. There will be also special effort to move toward a more holistic and multidisciplinary education. India already has a strong, long tradition of holistic and multidisciplinary learning from our old traditional universities like Takshila and Nalanda. And in ancient Indian literature, so the education was considered as a knowledge of 64 kalas or arts. So these included not only the subjects which are generally related to arts like singing or painting, but also scientific fields vocational fields as well as professional fields such as medicine, engineering, and also soft skills. So the very idea that all branches of creative human endeavor, including mathematics, science, and vocational subject, professional subject, and soft skills should be considered arts, has distinctly Indian origin. So when now we'll be saying the arts, or the idea of knowledge of many arts, or which is also called liberal arts. So it is not a new concept. So it was basically existing in our ancient Indian literary universities, and it is a kind of education that is required for 21st century also. Assessment of educational approaches in undergraduate education that integrate the humanities and arts with science, technology, engineering, mathematics, means STEM, have consistently showed positive learning outcomes. It has been seen at different world universities, world-class institutions, that this results in increased creativity and innovation, critical thinking and higher order thinking capacities, problem-solving capabilities, teamwork, communication skills, and more in-depth learning. It also helps in mastery of curricula across fields, whether it's social or moral awareness, besides general engagement and enjoyment of learning. Research is also improved and enhanced through a holistic and multidisciplinary education approach. So the multidisciplinary and holistic education would aim to develop all capacities of human being to help them to develop into a well-rounded individuals, which possess critical 21st century capacities. So this type of holistic education in the long term will be approach of all undergraduate programs, including those in professional, technical, and vocational disciplines. So this kind of holistic and multidisciplinary education is which is needed for the education of India to lead the country into the 21st century and the fourth industrial revolution. So it is expected that the even engineering institutions like IITs, they will move towards the more holistic and multidisciplinary education, which will include the arts as well as humanities. And the students of arts and humanities will try to learn more science, and they will all make an effort to incorporate more vocational subjects and soft skills. So all this requires imaginative and flexible curriculum structure, and that curriculum structure will enable creative combinations of disciplines for study and would offer multi-entry and exit options. Thus, while removing currently prevalent rigid boundaries and creating new possibilities for lifelong learning. So there will be graduate level, master's or doctoral education in large multidisciplinary universities, and while providing rigorous research-based specialization, but also provide opportunities for multidisciplinary work, including in academia, government, and industry. So all the large multidisciplinary universities and colleges will facilitate the move towards high quality, holistic and multidisciplinary education by the way of flexibility in curriculum and by encouraging the increased faculty and institutional autonomy in setting curriculum. So pedagogy should also be accordingly enhanced. So pedagogy will have an increased emphasis on communication, discussion, debate, research and opportunities for cross-disciplinary and interdisciplinary thinking. So there will be different departments in a multidisciplinary university or multidisciplinary institution, which will stimulate Indian educational environment, and such departments will be established and strengthened at all HEIs, and credits earned by the learners in different departments will be considered for their bachelor degree proposed by a particular department, and or these credits can also be earned by ODL mode, and they will be considered for their credit calculation for award of degree. So this credit-based courses and projects will be offered in a flexible and innovative way by all institutions. Just a minute. Just excuse me. Yes. So we were discussing that the flexible and innovative curricula of all HGI shall include credit-based courses and projects in the area of community engagement and service, environmental education, and value-based education. So environment education means it will include different areas related to the climate change, pollution, waste management, etc. And at the same time, value-based education will include the subjects or the areas related to development of humanistic, ethical, constitutional, and universal human values of truth, righteous conduct, and peace, and such other characteristics. So there should be global citizenship education as the world is increasingly becoming an interconnected. So to meet the ever-changing requirements, our learners should be provided, should be given chance to become aware of and understand global issues and should become active promoters of more peaceful, tolerant, inclusive, secure, and sustainable societies. So students at all HGIs will be provided opportunities for internship with local industry, businessmen, or with the faculty and researchers at their own institution or at the neighboring institutions. At the same time, they will be free to join different craftspersons. The idea will be to engage the learners in the practical side of their learning, and it will, as a byproduct, will improve their employability also. So undergraduate degrees will be of either 3-year or 4-year, and there will be multiple exit options within this period. So if a learner opts out after 1 year, so that he may be provided a certificate. After 2 years, he or she may be provided a diploma. Similarly, bachelor degree will be of 3-year as well as of 4 years. So 3-year basic bachelor degree will be there, and for the 4-year bachelor degree, so that will be a multidisciplinary bachelor degree, and that degree can be a research-based degree if the learner implements a research projects in that 4-year degree. So there will be academic bank of credits, which will be in short called as ABC. So these credits earned by the learner will be stored in that particular system, and at any time the learner can again earn more credits, and those will be added to the bank of credits. And once the number of credits is sufficient to award a diploma or degree, then the learner will be awarded accordingly. Similarly, there will be different designs of master's program. So there will be a 2-year master program with the second year totally devoted to the research. For those who have completed 3-year bachelor program, similarly, all the students who have already completed 4 years bachelor program with research, so they will have to go for 1 year in the master's program to earn master degree. So there can be integrated 5-year bachelor's or master's program, and undertaking a PhD will require either a master's degree or a 4-year bachelor degree with research. And the model public university existing today, so they will be converted to MERU, so multidisciplinary education and research universities. So these MERUs will be at par with the IITs or IIMs, and the aim will be to attain the highest global standards in quality education. So they will also help set the highest standards for multidisciplinary education across India. HGIs will have focus on research and innovation by setting up various types of incubation centers or technology development centers, or other such efforts will be undertaken by the institutions, so that the learners are having strong research and innovation capabilities. Also, to deal with epidemics or pandemics like COVID, so HGIs will take lead to undertake research in the areas related to these medical domains. And HAs will also develop specific handholding mechanisms and competitions for promoting innovations among student communities. So the National Research Foundation will function to enable and support such different types of initiatives by different HEIs in setting up research labs or other types of innovative or incubation centers. Next point is the optimal learning environments and support for students. So if multidisciplinary or other types of system which we have just discussed, if that has to be successful, then the learning environment should be optimal. And there should be a comprehensive approach for supporting the students. So this approach requires that there should be appropriate curriculum, there should be engaging pedagogy, there should be continuous formative assessment and adequate student support. So all these are the four cornerstones for quality learning. And along with providing suitable resources and infrastructure, so the infrastructure may involve quality libraries, classrooms, labs, technology. Students should also be provided with the initiatives like learning environment should be engaging and supportive, and these should enable all students to succeed. There should not be any liking for any kind of learners. So there are different steps which has been proposed by this NEP to achieve this optimal learning environments and support for students. So first is the autonomy to innovate. So autonomy to innovate on different matters of curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment. So there should be a broad framework, and within that framework, there should be autonomy to the faculty or to the institutions to have innovations. And this pedagogy and curriculum should be developed with the focus on stimulating and engaging learning experience for all students, and there should be continuous formative assessment instead of summative assessment. The choice-based credit system, which is even existing today, so that it should be further made flexible as well as the innovative. So the HEIs will move to criterion-based grading system that will assess students' achievement based on learning goals for each program, and that will make the system fairer and outcomes are more comparable. So the HIs will eventually move away from high-stake examinations, and instead of those high-stake examinations, there will be more continuous and comprehensive evaluations. Another step which is required is that institutions will integrate its academic plan into its larger institutional development plan. So these larger institutional development plans will focus upon holistic development of students, and they will create strong internal systems for supporting diverse student cohorts in academic and social domains. The examples may be that HEIs may have mechanism and opportunities for funding our topic-centered clubs or activities organized by students. Similarly, over time, activities could be incorporated into curriculum once appropriate faculty expertise and campus student demand is developed. Faculty will have the capacity and training to be able to approach students not just as a teachers but also as mentors and guides. Third point is that students from socio-economically disadvantaged backgrounds require encouragement and support to make a successful transition to higher education. So the HEIs, universities and colleges will focus on this point, and they will create mechanisms to support such students from different backgrounds. Fourth point is that as this ODL and online education provide a natural path to increase access to quality education, so this power of the ODL and online should be leveraged to the standard programs. So the ODL programs should be made equivalent to highest quality in-class programs available on campus. so that the students who are passing through ODL and online education, so they will have the same quality, they will have the same skills as required in class programs. Internationalization of the education is another motive in developing optimal learning environment. So there should be initiatives which will support international students visit to India and mobility to Indian students who want to study abroad. And courses and programs should be developed in different fields in such a way that these are having internationally relevant curricula, and the goal should be of global quality standards while developing these courses and programs, so that Indian students should not seek in foreign institutions when they want to have world-class education. So there should be internationalization at home. Even even India should be promoted as a global study destination by providing premium education at affordable costs, thereby helping to restore its earlier role as a Vishwa. So to achieve this internationalization, there should be collaborations and faculty student exchanges with high quality foreign institutions, and there should be mutually beneficial MOUs with foreign institutions. All this will help high performing Indian universities to set up campuses in other countries, as well as the top world universities may be invited or may be allowed to set up campuses in India, and there should be corresponding rules or legislative frameworks which should be having norms on par with other autonomous institutions of India. Such collaboration and student exchange between India and institution and global institution will be promoted through special efforts, and this is the special focus of this new policy. And also it is proposed that credits acquired in foreign universities will be permitted wherever these are appropriate to be counted towards the degrees to be awarded at Indian institutions of higher learning. Student activity and participation in teaching learning process is very important, because students are the primary stakeholders of the teaching learning process. So students must be given opportunities for participation in sports, culture, arts clubs, eco clubs, activity clubs, and such other curricular and co-curricular activities, which we call them today. So there's in every education system, education institution, there will be counseling system which will help the students to handle the stress and emotional adjustments. And there will be systematized arrangements to provide sports to students which are having rural backgrounds or which are having diverse backgrounds, and which may require certain types of hostel facilities or other types of sport. And also HEIs will ensure that quality medical facilities are existing for all students in their institutions. Financial assistance is another very important measure or the parameter which should be existing in the upcoming higher education institutions. So efforts should be made to incentivize the merit of students belonging to different disadvantaged groups like SC, ST, OBC, and other socio-economically disadvantaged groups. National Scholarship Portal will be expanded to support and foster and track the progress of students receiving scholarships. Also, private higher education institutions will be encouraged to offer larger number of free shifts and scholarship to their students. Then comes the faculty. So we are going through various pillars of the higher education one by one. So to have the quality education, higher education system, the quality and engagement of its faculty is a very important factor. Over the past several years, there have been various initiatives by the government to systematize the recruitment and career progression and to ensure equitable representation from various groups in the hiring of faculty. And compensation levels of the permanent faculty, especially in public institutions, have also increased. But all this has not led to the faculty motivation in terms of teaching, research, and service in HAIs, because this remains far lower than the desired level. So the various factors that lie behind this low faculty motivation, those needs to be addressed. And to address this, this policy recommends that there should be initiatives to achieve the best motivated and capable faculty in HEIs. And one of the steps which is considered as most basic step, so it is proposed that HEIs will be equipped with basic infrastructure and facilities. So these basic infrastructure and facilities include clean drinking water, clean working toilets, blackboards, offices, or means the very basic labs and classroom spaces, so that the faculty as well as students are interested in learning tools. Every classroom will have access to latest education technology that enables better learning experience, because nowadays faculty not only teaches with the blackboard or the chalk, so latest educational technology equipment is also required in classrooms. It is proposed that teaching duties will not be excessive and student-teacher ratio will not be too high, and all this will result in adequate time for faculty to have interaction with students and in conducting research and other university activities. And as far as possible, faculty will be provided to faculty will be appointed to individual institutions. So that means there will not be transfers across institutions. So this is with the fact that if a faculty knows that faculty has to remain in a particular college, so they will feel connected to and committed to their institution and community. The faculty will be given freedom to design their own curricula and pedagogical approaches, although there will be a broad framework. So within that framework, faculty will be free to develop their own courses, free to develop their own pedagogical approaches. So faculty will be empowered to conduct innovative teaching, research, and services, as they see West will be a key motivator and enabler for them to do truly outstanding and creative work. So faculty will be empowered to conduct, have their innovation in teaching, research, and in their service. And excellence achieved by any faculty member will be incentivized through different types of rewards or promotions or recognitions. And at the same time, if any faculty is not delivering, so there will be basic norms to help them accountable. So as the upcoming institutions are going to be autonomous institution, so there should be very clear faculty recruitment processes. So in addition to the current recruitment process, so there will be a tenure track type of system, so which will be put in place to further ensure excellence. So the fast track promotion system for recognizing high impact research and contribution will be there as part of the new faculty recruitment system. So there will be multiple parameters for performance assessment, and these performance assessment parameters will be developed by each HEI, and they will be part of their institutional development plans. The presence of outstanding and enthusiastic institutional leaders that cultivate excellence and innovation is the need of the hour. So excellent faculty will be identified at early and trained to become leaders of the higher education institutions. Leadership positions are also proposed that they will not remain vacant. So there will be open learning time period during transition in leadership, so that there is a continuity in the functioning of the institutions. Equity and inclusion in higher education is another feature which will open a vast array of possibilities that can lift both individuals as well as communities out of the cycle of disadvantages. So this policy envisions that there will be equitable access to quality education to all students, with a special emphasis on disadvantaged groups. And most of the reasons are common for school education and higher education for this exclusion. So those will be addressed at both school level as well as college level. So these various reasons of exclusion will be addressed specifically, and for this purpose, additional actions will, whatever actions are required, so those will be adopted by all higher education institutions as well as by the government. So certain steps to be taken by government has been earmarked in this particular NEP. And it starts with earmarking suitable government funds for education of ICTs and setting clear targets. Similarly, there are certain steps which are required to be taken by HEI. So this involves especially making curriculum and admission process inclusive and welcoming, basically making HEIs welcoming for students from different backgrounds. Teacher education is also a vital tool or very important in creating a pool of school teachers as well as college teachers. So it has been proposed that there exist a large thousands of teacher education institutions, but those institutions are not effective. So this HEI, this NEP proposes that these teacher education institutions should be reviewed and only the high quality teacher education institutions should exist. And there should be action against substandard and dysfunctional teacher education institutions. So only by 2030, so only a sound multidisciplinary integrated teacher education programs will be in force. So due to paucity of time, I am now going a little bit fast. So this policy also talks of that every higher education institution will run a 4-year integrated B.Ed course, so that school teachers are having experience of multidisciplinary education institutions, and at the higher education side, the higher education institutions will have a network of government and private schools to work closely with, and potential teachers with students teach, and they will have the actual practical training of teaching the students. And in HEIs, the Department of Education will have faculty profiles which are diverse and having different backgrounds, and faculties with having training relevant to school education, so that will be made part of the departments of education at higher education institutions. And the fresh PhD entrants, irrespective of discipline, will be required to take credit-based courses in teaching, education, and pedagogy, and accordingly, all the PhD programs at universities across the country will be reoriented to include features in PhD tests, PhD programs. In service, continuous professional development for college and university teachers will continue through existing institutional arrangements and ongoing initiatives. So there will be use of technology platforms for providing training programs to develop the in-service capabilities of teachers. So there will be a national mission for mentoring, which will have participation from senior and retired faculty of different institutions. And vocational education has been also proposed to be reimagined, so that our share in the vocational education is presently, which is very less. It should be comparable with the developed countries like USA or Germany. So these numbers for India shows that the number is very less. So it should underline the urgency of the need to spread the vocational education in India. So the main reasons which have been identified as the reasons for low vocational education is that Students generally are offered to the vocational educations after 10th, and if they opt for vocational education, so in mainstream courses there is no clear-cut pathways to continue their vocational education in the colleges or universities. So there is a lack of vertical mobility, which somewhat has been addressed by National Skill Qualification Framework, but still there needs many effort in the domain of vocational education so that it is accepted as the main education. Generally, it is considered that vocational education should start at after 10th in present system, but in the NEP it has been proposed that the vocational education should start at the early ages, especially it should start in the middle and secondary school, and it should be integrated with higher education. So there should be there will be a skill gap analysis for mapping the local opportunities for vocational educations to find the focus areas. So it is proposed that the Ministry of Education will constitute a national commission for the integration of vocational education, which will have experts from different fields, and they will then develop this into this gap analysis, and they will propose the innovative models and practices for the upliftment of vocational education. This national skill qualification framework will be detailed further for each discipline, vocation and profession, and there will be efforts to align Indian standards with international standard classification of occupations, so that there is a framework for recognition of prior learning, and the students getting vocational education, they should have the opportunity to continue their education in any university in India or abroad. So catalyzing quality academic research in all fields through a new national research foundation. So new national research foundation will be set up, which will fund all the research in different fields. So I'm skipping some of the slides. So here these figures are important. That despite the critical importance of research, currently 0.69% of GDP is invested into research and innovation, as compared to 2.8 in the US and 4.3 in Israel, 4.2 in South Korea. So India needs to supply more funds to research, and for that NRF will be a platform through which the research activities will be funded in different Indian institutions. Let me go to further next points before closing down. So in institutions that currently fund research include DST, DAE, DBT, and JURIC, and many more such in the institutions. So they will continue to exist, but at the same time, NRF will be there, which will carefully coordinate with the other funding agencies and will work science, engineering, and other academics to ensure synergy of purpose and avoid duplication of effort. The primary activities of NRF will be to fund competitive, peer-reviewed grant proposals of all types across all disciplines, and they will provide seed money, and they will facilitate research at academic institutions by acting as a licensing between researcher and government and other funding agencies, keeping in mind the national research issues as well as the latest research breakthroughs. The regulatory system of the higher education will also be transformed. So there has been a heavy-handed regulation system with too little effect in existence for so many years. So this NEP proposes that regulatory system will be a complete overhaul in order to re-energize the higher education sector and enable it to thrive. So it proposes that there will be Higher Education Commission of India, so which will have 4 different verticals. So these 4 verticals will work independently at the same time in synergy. First vertical is referred to as the National Higher Education Regulatory Council, which will be responsible for regulatory functions, and it will work in a manner resulting in light but tight type of regulatory mechanism. Second vertical of HEI will be National Accreditation Council, which will focus upon the accreditation of institutions. Similarly, third vertical will be Higher Education Grants Council, which will be mainly focusing on the funding and financing of higher education. And the fourth vertical will be General Education Council, GEC, which will further have many professional standard setting bodies as their members. So the main idea of this fourth vertical will be to set standards for the higher education system. And this separation of functions would mean that each vertical within HEIC would take a new single role which is relevant, meaningful, and important in due regulatory system. So there will not be duplication of functions by different bodies. On the itself, HECI will be an independent body which will oversee and monitor the functioning of these four different verticals. Setting up of new quality HEIs will be again made very simple, but with the target of spirit of public service and financial backing for long-term stability will also be considered while giving permissions for setting new higher education institutions. So central and state governments will help exceptionally well-performing institutions to attain larger number of students by providing funding. At the same time, public philanthropic partnership models for the HEIs will also be explored for setting up high-quality higher education institutions. There will be special focus to curb the commercialization of the education. So multiple mechanisms with checks and balances will be kept in place to stop the commercialization of education. So there will be no difference between public or private institutions in terms of the regulatory regime. So there will be the same type of regulatory regime but the private institutions will be encouraged for their efforts in the education system. Effective governance and leadership for higher quality institution is also important. So the special efforts will be suggested or taken by HEIs to have the institutions governed by academicians which have strong which has culture, which will result in creation of culture of excellence and innovation in higher education systems. So there will be board of governors which will be established, and these board of governors will be empowered to govern the institution. They will make all the appointments, they will take all decisions. So there will be overarching legislation which will supersede all other legislations in relation to the roles and responsibilities of BOG. And it is envisioned that HEIs will be incentivized, supported, and mentored during this process, and all will aim to become autonomous and have empowered BOGs by 2035. So these BOGs will help in developing strategic institutional development plans. On the basis of institutions will develop initiatives and assess their own progress and reach the goals set therein, and which would then become the basis for further public funding. So with this, I would like to go to the certain slides related to implementation. So I'm skipping these certain slides. So all these different points which I have highlighted, although I have skipped some of the slides due to paucity of time. So all this will be dependent on the implementation of this NAP. So any policy's effectiveness depends upon the its implementations, and this implementation requires multiple initiatives and actions which will have to be taken by multiple bodies in a synchronized and systematic manner. So for the implementation of this policy, Implementation will be led by various bodies, which will be from Ministry of Education or CABE, Union and State Governments, education-related ministries, state departments of education, boards, National Testing Agency, and other such bodies which are related with the education. And HEI will be again a major stakeholder in the implementation of these institutions. And there will be timelines and a plan for review in order to ensure that the policy is implemented in its spirit and intent through coherence in planning and synergy across all these bodies involved in education. Implementation will be guided by many principles. So some of the principles have been highlighted on this screen. So very first principle of which will be a guiding principle for implementation. So the implementation of the policy in the spirit and intent will be the most critical matter. So it is the second principle is that it is important to implement the policy initiatives in a phased manner. So whole policy cannot be implemented at one stage. So there will be several steps. Each step required that previous steps are implemented successfully, then only the coming steps will be implemented. Third principle is prioritization will be important in ensuring optimal sequencing of policy points. But it means that the most critical and urgent actions are taken up first, thereby enabling a strong base. Fourth principle is that comprehensiveness in implementation will be key, as this policy is interconnected and holistic. Only a full-fledged implementation, not a piecemeal one, will ensure that the desired objectives are achieved. So with time, all the policy points should be implemented. The fifth point is that since education is concurrent subject, it will need careful planning, joint monitoring, and collaborative implementation between center and state. So all central and state agencies should work in collaboration for successful implementation. Timely infusion of requisite resources, whether these are human, infrastructural, financial, at the state level as well as central level, will be crucial for satisfactory execution of this policy. And there should be careful analysis and review at different times to view the effectiveness of the implementation of this policy by different agencies. There will be subject-wise implementation committees of experts in cooperation and consultation with other relevant ministries will be set up at both the central and state levels to develop the detailed implementation plans for each aspect of this policy in accordance with the above principles to achieve the goals of policy in a clear and phased manner. So there will be yearly joint reviews of the progress of implementation of the policy in accordance with the targets set for each action. And these reviews will be conducted by designated teams, which will be constituted by MOE or the different states. In the decade 2030-40, the entire policy is expected to be in operational mode, following which another comprehensive reviews will be undertaken. And this is proposed that after that comprehensive review, there may be another new policy or there will be modification in this policy. So these are the various highlights related to higher education institutions. So I have taken these slides, the material mainly from the National Education Policy proposed by Government of India. So with this, I thank you one and all for your patience during the session. So as such, I have can take full benefit of NEP. So is there any discussion or any query or point of discussion from any of the participants? Then we can have that. Yes, any feedback or any query from the participants?
Dear participants, if you have any queries, you can unmute yourself and you can ask the questions to sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Sir, I want to know what is the role of Indian language in education policy.
Education policy recommends that the education should be in language, at least up to class 8. So in the upcoming system, the mother tongue or the local language is going to have a major role in the education system, as the early school education will be going to be in the mother tongue only or the local language only. And even at higher education, it is proposed that the institutions must provide education both in local languages as well as in the desired language. So this is my answer to this query, please. Any other point? So if there is no further query or discussion, so I would like to thank once again Bardhaman College of Engineering for inviting me for delivering this session.
Thank you, sir. So, Virginia ma'am, you can proceed now.
On behalf of our Vardhaman Engineering College family and the audience, I would like to thank our distinguished speaker, Dr. Balwinder Singh Dhaliwal sir, for taking out the time from his busy schedule to provide us with such valuable information on national education policy. We are honored, sir. Thank you for the enlightening lecture. Now, I request our program coordinator to felicitate our distinguished speaker of the day, Dr. Balwinder Singh Dhaliwal sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, whole organizing team of Bardhaman Engineering College.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for this lecture, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, Virginia ma'am, you can close it.
Okay.
Assessment and feedback. Link share.